Hi, nerds.
I can't believe we finally made it here. We are at the last movie of Phase 1, which is Marvel's The Avengers. We're very excited to get into all of our thoughts.
Before we get into that review, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video.
And if you aren't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, throw in a comment after you're done watching the video, and we would love for you to support our channel.
Yep, now let's get into it.
Okay, Naomi.
Right, our Avengers review. This is the big one.
It's exciting for us, because that means we're, if you don't really count the total number of movies, we're a third of the way through already.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Hard to believe. And this is a movie I'm very excited to review. This is actually the first Marvel movie that I ever watched.
Same here.
He watched it before I did, and then he and my sister convinced me to try it. So now I'm hooked, and here we are.
Yeah.
So, what was your overall impression of this film?
It's a really solid film. Excellent film. I would argue that it is the deepest film in relation to theme out of all the movies in Phase 1. It is pretty much perfect until the climax, and that's where I have a number of my issues. That's my overall impression. What about you?
I would argue that Captain America's first movie has a stronger theme than this one, if we're going with just the Phase 1 movies. But I would agree that for the rest of the movies, this has the strongest theme. As I mentioned, this was not only... I'm trying to recapture my first impression of this movie the first time I watched it, and as I mentioned, this is not only was not only my first time watching the movie, but it was the first introduction to the MCU as a whole. So my overall impression, not only of the characters, but also just this whole massive world that I would be getting into. And I loved it, obviously.
Yeah, you're here.
So I loved the characters and the way they interact with each other and the world, which is all stuff we're going to get into further on. So first impression, love at first sight.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all you have to say? Love at first sight?
That's really all I have to say. Mostly referring to, my first impression watching it. Obviously, now I'm trying to look at it in a deeper light, under a bit of a magnifying glass. But I will say that I think this movie, for me, kind of has that nostalgia factor that Iron Man 1 has for a lot of people. So if my review isn't terribly harsh, I'm hoping that Matthew can play bad cop for me, because
I'll try and do that.
because I have that feeling for this movie. It's my baby. I want to protect it, and so
I'll come down
my
a little bit
review
harder.
is not gonna be quite as harsh.
And if I can go back for just a second, when I said it's the deepest film in relation to theme, I was thinking more along the lines of not a singular theme, because I think Captain America had a very good one singular theme, and it does that one singular theme better than Marvel. This movie. However, I think this movie has multiple different themes going on within it, and I think that propels the theme aspect of this film higher than Captain America's first movie.
I
wrote down 4 different ones that I think we can discuss once we get to that point. So
very cool. Okay.
So first thing though is, what did we like?
What did we like? Are we doing best moment first and then just other things we liked, or do we want to save?
Let's do that. Let's do best moment first, and then get into things we liked. So we'll start off with you. What was your favorite moment of the film?
So there's a lot of moments that I really enjoyed. One that I've liked from the very first time I watched the film was the fight scene between Natasha and Clint, because their fighting styles match each other so well, and it's just very cool to watch. So I'm not usually my favorite moments are not action scenes. This is probably the one exception, just because it's so incredibly cool. So that would be, I think, my favorite moment.
That's awesome.
And although there are a number of others that I like and are in my highlights that I'll have to...
And what it kind of reminds me of is when in Winter Soldier, when Captain America's fighting Bucky, they have the exact same kind of flow to their fighting styles that complement each other really well in terms of choreography to a fight, which is very well done in this movie and in Winter Soldier. Yeah. My best moment for me, I have two.
Cool.
One was Nick Fury getting Phil Coulson's cards all bloody and then using those as a catalyst for the Avengers. I feel like that was a very smart move for Nick Fury's character, and it was that turning point for the whole movie. Not so much that Coulson died, but Captain America seeing those trading cards after it had been mentioned a couple times, and he
they really built up to the moment.
Yes. And then that was the tipping point where okay, well, let's go get Loki.
Yeah.
However, that's not my favorite moment.
Just one of them.
Just one of them. But that's my second place, my honorable mention. My favorite moment was when Loki was battling Thor on Stark Tower, and Thor says, "You can stop this," or something like that, and then Loki says it's too late.
Yeah.
At that moment, let me back up. Throughout this entire movie, Loki is pure, at least in my opinion, pure villain. Yes. No redeeming qualities about him whatsoever. Pretty much. Until this moment, you get to see kind of what his character was in Thor.
Yeah, there's just a flicker of oh, maybe, but no, it's too late now.
Yes, and I feel like in that moment, Loki did have a moment of, I made a mistake, but it's too late now, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna roll with it and pretend like I didn't make a mistake.
Yes. And I like that, because that's a very good character moment that I don't think that there were that many good character moments in this movie, except for Black Widow had a number of good character moments. And,
which actually I want to start going back to in a minute.
And then Loki had that one, and that was about it for me.
Yeah,
to be perfectly honest with you.
I think so. Yeah, for character moments, I might have written something down later on, but I think that's...
So that was my favorite moment.
That's really good, though.
Yeah. So what else do we like?
Okay, you mentioned Black Widow. I love her in this movie.
She's excellent.
She's awesome, and I will have more to say about that later, but loved her. I love how the Avengers interact. I love how they're not a team at first and have to build up to it. The conflict and the tension involved in that is awesome.
Yeah.
I love Stark and Banner. They're great. I love how Cap takes leadership and really steps into his role. And I mean, you have to bear in mind he's been unfrozen for a year, I think we had determined, so not very long, and so this whole world is very confusing and probably intimidating.
Overwhelming.
And here he is ready to fight aliens in New York with these other superhero people, and he just takes charge.
He just does it.
And I love him, and he's great.
Yeah.
This is totally a little thing, but the music for the gala scene when he's Loki's taking
excellent.
The eye from the and there's the strings playing in the background. That is such a cool, juxtaposition between the, really intense moment that's happening and then just this, orchestra playing in the background, which I thought was really cool and well done. And then, circling back to Black Widow just briefly, the scene where she's talking with Loki when he's in his cell, just...
That's good.
It's so cool.
And it shows off her... more of her skill set, that she's not just a good fighter, but she's an excellent spy as well.
Yeah, and it's not just telling us, oh yeah, she was a spy. It's no, this is what she did and she's good at it.
And she's doing it right now.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, probably I'll say more as we tie into favorite character and other such things.
For me, so I love the introduction to this movie. It's a very ominous introduction with, I don't know that guy's, I want to say, is it the Watcher? The guy who is Thanos's, little minion person?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's the Watcher,
but basically, when he is narrating the opening of this movie, it's really very cool. Ominous and very intense start to a movie that fills the viewer with a sense of dread,
something serious is happening.
Things are getting bad now.
The world is actually at stake.
I liked that.
Yeah.
I liked every single character introduction. I thought they were done extremely, extremely well and played to each of those characters' unique personality.
Especially because this being our first movie, that was our first introduction to those characters. And so
it was excellent.
They did it well.
Well done. The CGI in this movie was very, very good. There was, I think there was only one moment where I'm like, that looks fake, which was when Captain America does his little spinny kick while he's deflecting Iron Man's blast during the battle. That was the only moment for me that looked fake. Everything else in this movie looked very real.
Yeah,
and that is a very nice improvement from the rest of the movies that have come before where we've said the CGI doesn't look that good. This movie, they nailed it. The soundtrack for this movie is excellent.
So good.
From Iron Man theme to the Avengers theme to that orchestra playing, it matched the movie well.
Yes.
And not a lot of soundtracks do that, so I liked it in this movie.
Yeah, it was very intentional.
Yes.
The soundtrack that they chose.
Another thing, while I do not like Mark Ruffalo in Age of Ultron, Ragnarok, Infinity War, or Endgame,
any of the other ones,
in this movie, Mark Ruffalo for me was going to be my favorite character until I thought of another one.
Oh.
So, not Mark Ruffalo.
But
Bruce Banner.
Actually, that's a good point.
Mark does a very good job acting in this movie.
Yeah.
Because he can really only do a calm demeanor, and that's all he does in this movie. And he does it well. In all the other movies, when he tries to do something different, like get excited or like you're shouting something, there's always something off, I've found, about him being a more upbeat kind of person.
Yeah.
He's not upbeat in this movie, and it works.
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo does a good job.
Yeah, actually, I do. I really like Bruce in this movie.
The Black Widow and Hawkeye relationship, as Naomi said, is excellent.
On point.
And the dialogue throughout this movie is very, very good. This was a good, well-written film.
I think I have that written down somewhere, that they stay really true to the characters throughout the dialogue. They don't shy away from the conflict that would arise from these characters being in the same room. They embrace that and let them say what they want to say. And it's awesome.
And everything that they say, it sounds good. Like, there's no video game dialogue in this movie at all. It's all very well written. So, I love that. Okay, so quickly cover the best action scene, and then we'll jump into our favorite quote.
Okay.
Best action scene for me kind of has to be the helicarrier scene by default. There's really only 3 action scenes in this movie. I'm not going to count the little scuffle that Thor has with Captain America and Iron Man.
Okay.
It's too small of a sample size for me to count that as like an action set piece.
Fair enough.
So the first one would be when the Tesseract is going plooey at the beginning of the movie. That's, again, not a lot happens there. You don't have all the characters there, so I have to eliminate that. The final battle, I have a lot of problems with, so I can't choose that. So I have to go with the helicarrier scene, even though if it's stacked up against my other favorite action scenes, it's probably near the bottom of my list. But because the first scene doesn't have everyone, and the last action scene has problems, I have to choose the helicarrier set piece.
Okay, but can we just say about the helicarrier, so it has my favorite moment with
I like that.
Black Widow and Hawkeye. But it also shows Hawkeye's skill, because you wouldn't think that an archer is so talented, but he takes down that helicarrier almost single-handedly, which is cool. So yes, I agree, not like the best action scene out of so many of the others that we're going to see and have seen, but it has a couple really cool
It does have a couple
moments.
good moments, okay? But what I meant by default is it's the best scene because the other ones aren't good or don't have enough for me. Okay, so favorite quote, switching over to you.
Quote. Okay, so there's so many. There are quotes from this movie that I will quote on a regular basis.
That man is playing Galaga.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. So yes, there's a lot of things I quote. I think one of the ones I quote the most is he's adopted. I just say that all the time, so I think almost... No, he's not. I do say that about him sometimes. So that's kind of... I'm going to say that's my favorite quote just because I say it so often, but there are so many good ones. Yeah,
there's so many good ones. I would agree with that as well. My favorite was from Captain America when he says, "There's only one God, ma'am," and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That's bold.
It's true to Captain America's character, and something that you guys might not know about us, we're Christians, and it's very hard for us to try and find any sort of semblance of a Christian theme in a secular movie. It rarely ever happens. And it's good to see that someone who would have those beliefs like Captain America coming from an age where almost everyone
at least sort of
a Christian. It's good to see that the writers threw that in there. Yeah. So that's why it's my favorite.
And it suits his character.
And it suits his character, which is great. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Theme.
So I'm really interested to see what themes you pull out.
So let's go with you first, and then we'll hammer through mine.
So I'd say the one overarching theme was along the lines of we're stronger together. It's like, a cord of three strands.
Together we stand, divided we fall.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And I would agree that definitely is the blanket theme for the entire movie. Mm-hmm. However, when I normally think of themes, I go back to when I was taking English in high school, and they'd be like, look for words that repeat, right? And especially if there are words that mean something, not just like, I don't know, bicycle, unless it's...
Or said. Said repeats.
Yes. Look for words that are unique, that repeat often and have some sort of meaning to the story. And I found 4 of those that showed up a lot. So I want to have a discussion about them.
Cool,
The first one was ambition. That's mentioned not a lot, but a couple times in relation to Loki, especially when Thor's talking to Loki, like he said, put aside this selfish ambition or whatever. And that kind of got me thinking of ambition was a very big theme in Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Oh, okay, going there.
So, we saw how, if you guys know Shakespeare, I don't really, but from what I kind of remember, ambition was what drove Hamlet to do a lot of these not so good things, and then he ends up dying in the end.
Is that Macbeth?
Or is that Macbeth?
You're thinking of Macbeth,
I'm thinking of Macbeth.
Hamlet is the one who has
not
to kill
Hamlet.
his uncle. Hamlet is Lion King.
I meant to say Macbeth.
Yeah.
Macbeth drives them to do all these terrible things and ends up dying in the end, right? So, I want to talk about the ambition in this movie.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
What are my thoughts? I would say Loki has the most ambition, and in the background, Thanos. We don't know that yet, but it's Thanos' ambition that is driving Loki's and is feeding Loki's.
Yes.
I would say S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of arbitrarily has the ambition of, quote-unquote protecting the world, but obviously doing it through some shady means with their weapon creation and all that. Obviously, Fury has the ambition of building the Avengers. Coulson was tied up in that. So, yeah, I would say that's good.
And a lot of characters in this movie had goals that they wanted to achieve.
Yes, and that's what you want. And that's what you want in the characters. You want your characters to have goals, and you want those goals to conflict, because that's what builds up the conflict in the movies. So,
Next one I had was power. And you mentioned in another movie that power corrupts, right? Did you?
Yeah, power corrupts the strong, I think was what I said.
And I feel like that is exactly what happened to Loki and exactly what happened to S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie. Loki, after not being able to get the throne in Thor, has an opportunity to win all of Earth.
Yeah.
And
does it.
And normally, Loki wouldn't do that. Normally, on that big of a scale. Because of the good that's still kind of inside him. We see that at the end of Infinity War, where Thanos chokes him to death because he's trying to actually do something good. Yeah. Loki has that in him the entire time he's involved in the Infinity Saga.
Yes.
So, but him having, legit having an opportunity, not creating an opportunity like he did in Thor, but actually having an opportunity fall in front of him for power, corrupted his character and made him do things that he normally wouldn't do.
Yes.
And then the other thing was with S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. has this incredible power over pretty much everyone on Earth because of their association with the Avengers and all the technology they have access to.
Yeah.
And then Fury was...
And we see that power then leaking into, as we see in Winter Soldier, Hydra was there the whole time and is feeding off of that power.
Exactly.
Which isn't to say that S.H.I.E.L.D. is completely innocent either.
Yeah.
But
this was the beginning of the end of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie. And you can definitely see that with Nick Fury trying to cover up the mass weapons manufacturing that S.H.I.E.L.D. is about to do. So then the third one that I had was control.
Okay.
This was mentioned a couple times. I'm actually not quite sure why I wrote it down. I know I wrote it down at one point.
It's an interesting thing to pull out because Loki's whole thing in this movie is being able to control others with the Mind Stone and his scepter.
Okay.
And
I think that's why I wrote it down.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that plays a huge role in the movie. Mm-hmm. But then there's also the fact that the Avengers, particularly the Hulk, can't be controlled.
Yes.
And that...
Hulk can't even control himself.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like... It kind of ties into the power, is like who has the power to control and how that all balances out. And,
yes.
Yeah.
And then my last one was freedom. And this was going to tie into my what is the point at the end.
Okay.
This is mentioned a lot, especially by Loki.
Yes.
And I think in his mind, he's doing something that's right throughout this movie because of this concept.
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. Okay. So he believes that freedom is hurting mankind, and that because we have a certain amount of freedom to do what we want, not that there aren't laws in place, but that for the most part we're free to pursue work.
Yes. What he's getting is our free will is not a good thing for humanity. The best thing for us is to be under some sort of king influence.
Yeah. And maybe he's not entirely wrong, and that's what you want in a villain. You want a villain who makes you kind of think maybe he's not wrong.
I think he is wrong.
Yeah. He is wrong, but it's part of what drives him, and I wonder if that is part of what Thanos and his people told him. Yeah. Like, you were free on Asgard, and look at where it led you, and now let us control you so that you can control these people, and everything will be better.
Yeah.
And if you get told something enough, you start to believe it, and so I wonder if that's what happens there with him.
And then throughout all of these 4 things we've discussed, there's been a lot of references to what's going to happen with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Winter Soldier, and I feel like this freedom bit will come up in that as well, where Cap says this isn't freedom, this is fear, when Nick Fury's like, I'm just going to hold a gun to everyone in the world and that's peace, right? It's not.
It's not.
And I feel like
that's really interesting.
That theme definitely carries through to Winter Soldier. Yes. So, that being said, I will mention one more thing, is that this is one of the reasons why I like Age of Ultron, is because it has a number of these different themes in it, and they explore all of them.
They build off of
Very few of the MCU movies have as many different themes that you can pull out of it, in my opinion. They only have one. This movie, as well as Age of Ultron, do. And that's one of the reasons why I think Age of Ultron is severely underrated.
Yeah.
Because people discount the social commentary and
power of theme.
the deeper meaning behind the story that the screenwriters are telling. People tend to discount that. So that's why I like Age of Ultron. Stay tuned. I don't know when that's going to be. But in a while. Eventually. So story.
Okay, so obviously theme ties into story, and theme is a huge part of what builds a story. So I'm glad we had that discussion, because that's a lot of what I wanted to say. But as far as like structure and stuff, it's well paced. They keep up the tension mostly via character, which is really good. You want your characters to be driving the story, and so something they do really well is staying true to the characters and making sure that everything that they do and say is what those people would do and say in those situations, and yet that makes them butt heads, which is entertaining for us, but also interesting for us, because then we get to see how they interact, and it gives us kind of a glimpse into what real human friendships are like. Like, nobody is the same. Nobody will think the same thought in a given situation, and so this kind of proves that even though we're so vastly different, we can come together in some sort of semblance of unity, and that's pretty much what I wanted to say there.
Solid story, no real glaring issues.
No glaring issues at all.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so favorite character.
Black Widow.
Okay, yes, you go first.
Black Widow is my favorite character in this movie. She was not my favorite character when I first watched it. Granted, I was like 13, so I think my favorite character was Thor, just because I was a 13-year-old girl.
Because of these.
Yeah. And I, loved fantasy, and he talked like a fantasy prince. So. Yeah. But, no, considering character, like, on an actual character level, Thor is not much or anything in this movie. Black Widow, though, is so good. So I loved, first of all, she's an awesome character in this movie. Like, we get to see her really shine. She shows how smart she is in that, like, her spy-ish moments with Loki. She shows her physical capabilities endlessly. But also something that I appreciate is she's not, and this is because, she's a female character, and we get shoved down our throats so much that female characters need to be strong and independent and fearsome, and she is that, but not exclusively. She is willing to be rescued by the other Avengers, like, in various little moments. The big one that stands out for me is when she's running from Hulk, and she's, like, about to be killed by him, and Thor comes in and saves her. And she... Captain
Marvel will not let that happen.
Yeah, no, and she's not like, hey, what'd you just do? You stole
I totally had this.
Like, come on, no, she, like, totally is obviously thankful for it. So I love that about her. She has vulnerabilities, which is good. Yeah. It's okay for a girl to be vulnerable. And building off of that, she shows emotion. She's really shaken after that scene, which is relatable. Like, I don't care how much of a well-trained spy you are, some things are gonna shake you. And she had never been prepared for facing a Hulk guy, so...
And that's a big problem with Captain Marvel. She has no emotion. Just so you know, we are going to absolutely slam Captain Marvel into the ground. We're going to rub her stinking face right in the dirt. But anyways.
But Black Widow shows that you can do a female character well.
Yes.
And then one other thing... She cares about all the other members of the team, which you see build off of in the other movies, as she builds a relationship with them. But like
every single one, she has a very good relationship.
Except for maybe Thor, we don't get to see as
much. Because they don't really interact that much. Yeah,
Thor's
Thor.
But like, everyone else she develops relationships with, and you can see the start of that in this movie, which I love. Like, she genuinely cares about these people so much. They've become her family, and we get to see where that all starts in this movie, and it's great, and I love her.
For me, my favorite character was Phil Coulson.
Okay, he was my second favorite.
Yeah, so I was originally going to go with Bruce Banner, but then I'm like, I don't think he carries that through the rest of the movie. The first, 80% of it, he's good, and then the final battle obviously turns into the Hulk, and Hulk isn't my favorite character, personally, so I really couldn't have him here. Black Widow was probably my third choice. I didn't want to put her as my favorite, because I had a feeling you would pick it. I wanted to go a different direction. So for me, I'm like, there's no other character in this movie that really stands out. They're all kind of the same. Even though they have different personalities. They all... No one stands out in terms of, that character did a good job at being them.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Everyone else was just kind of, here's Captain America, he's a nice, humble guy, boom, slap, put it on the wall, right? Thor, he's this, chivalrous dude. Cool, he's done. Tony Stark is quippy. Done. Coulson he's so complex, and I love it.
Which is really rare and cool for a minor character and a sidekick, because he doesn't get all that much screen time, and yet we learn so much about him in this movie. His fanboying over Captain America is the best.
Yeah, and him standing up to Loki by himself just kind of shows you how much of a excellent and fearless person he is.
Yeah, and you can almost see how he was inspired by Cap. You can imagine that he would have, read about Captain America, obviously admired him, and so maybe I like to think that he took a little bit of that and was
my turn.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the hero.
Time for me to be the chivalrous one who lays down my life for you people.
And he was a hero.
Yes.
Because if he didn't die, I don't think the Avengers would have been able to do what they did in the end. They probably would have. The screenwriters would have found a way.
But this was the better way.
This was the better way to go about that. So, well done, Coulson.
Yes.
Way to die.
Good job! You died well!
Not many people die well in Marvel.
Or stay dead.
Or stay dead.
Let's be fair. And actually, I don't think Coulson stays dead. He comes
back in TV series. We're never going to mention that, though. Because Kevin Feige never did, so... Worst moment.
Worst moment. So, okay. So I don't think I had a moment that I strongly disliked. I think all of the things in the movie, except for arguably a bit of the climax, was good, and I enjoyed it. So I'm just going to pull out what my biggest problem throughout the movie was. And that is, I don't want to say I didn't like, but I didn't entirely love Loki in this movie. This is my least favorite appearance
and that's fair.
Of Loki in any of the movies that he appears in. He's kind of reduced to just sort of the big bad, and other than that glimmer of a moment with Thor, he's bad. Like, he just... And there's no... He feels like a different character than he is in the other movies that he appears in, which I'm just bummed about because I love him in the other movies. And I know... I mentioned this in my discussion of him, but some people think that maybe he had been, like, brainwashed by the Mind Stone, which maybe, I don't know.
I don't buy it, because if he had, he would have had the eye thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was, personally.
Yeah, I don't really think so either. But even if he was, that's not enough for me to go, like, oh, poor Loki, okay, he must be okay. Yeah, I didn't like him in this movie. He was reduced to the one-dimensional, boring villain. And I think they, in part, did that because they had all of these other characters that they were trying to introduce and work together and become a group, and so the villain's just, like, shelved to just be there as Loki. And so I was a bit disappointed in that.
Okay, for me, it was what I call the Phantom Menace syndrome.
Okay.
I've had a lot
That's in my problems section.
I have a lot of Star Wars references throughout this channel. First of all, because I think Star Wars is one of the most overrated movie series of all time. If we get the chance to review those movies, I'm going to trash them. I loved Star Wars as a kid, mind you. I do not like any of the movies now. Yeah. Except for maybe 4 and 5. The rest I do not like. But yes, so anyways, the Phantom Menace syndrome. And I have two worst moments. One was the skybeamy thing. I hate that.
The portal?
The portal thing. I do not like any references to skybeams. I don't know. Actually,
why?
I don't know. That's not the Phantom Menace syndrome.
I don't get that. But
I don't like skybeams. Okay, it happens in every movie. So, but
fair enough.
The actual Phantom Menace moment was when Tony Stark blew up the mothership, and everyone else just goes like, ugh.
That was okay, and I get why they do that because the climax has been running for a while now, and they want to wrap it up, and like, here's this epic moment. Let's finish it now. But it is. It sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, those things seemed like bioorganic. Like, they're not like robots or something where they're connected to the mothership in any way.
Yeah.
It made no sense.
They're somewhat alive.
Yeah, like they seem like a living
They're not droids.
Thing. Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
So I like, do they all have like something that instantly kills them when the ship explodes?
And,
like,
that's
stupid.
also stupid.
Why would they
because
do
like
that?
Even today, when you build a robot, if you somehow destroyed like because I feel like if you invented a robot and you didn't have a remote control for it, it would be able to just do its own thing. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say, for example, a Roomba vacuum. If it's charged, it does its thing. You don't need to control it from somewhere else.
Yeah, and if you blow up the charger, it'll still run until the battery dies.
Exactly. So I never have gotten the thing where the mothership blows up and everything else on the ground immediately dies.
Yeah.
It's not like, especially in the Phantom Menace, it's not like they're up there controlling every single one of these droids. No, they're droids. It's Star Wars. Like, R2-D2 doesn't go plooey when the R2-D2 factory blows up.
Yeah.
Like, he's his own thing.
Yeah.
And in this movie, these things are their own things.
Yeah.
They shouldn't need any outside controlling force.
I know, it's so weird.
Dumb. Okay. Now that that's over, let's pop back and forth for our problems.
Okay.
How many do you have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I think we covered my problems.
Oh, really?
And like I pointed out, it's because of the nostalgia thing. I just can't really see problems.
Want me to keep talking then?
I will probably end up agreeing with you.
Okay.
But I would not have been able to spot them myself, per se.
Okay.
Take it away.
Okay. Well, I mentioned this in our last review for Captain America. When German people are talking to each other in English, I don't like that. Any sort of foreign language, when there are two people in the same room that can speak that foreign language, they shouldn't switch to English. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense. In this movie, it doesn't make sense for when Loki goes to Germany for every single person in that crowd to know what he's talking about.
Oh,
he's
when
talking
he says
in
Neil?
English. None of, at least, give or take, 20% of them shouldn't understand English.
I mean, okay.
They might, because most westernized countries do, but there should have been more confusion than that.
Yes, it's a fair point. I would say it would have made more sense if, like, a couple people in the crowd knew English and then knelt, and then the rest of the crowd was like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do, and knelt.
And then that guy who stood up, unless he was a tourist, he should have had a German accent, the old guy. He should have had a German accent. Mm-hmm. They were in Germany. Was it in Leipzig?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was in Leipzig. No, it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't Leipzig.
No, it was something else.
Something else. Okay, he should have had a German accent.
Yes.
Unless he was a tourist.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that.
Which, I mean, he could have been because there's, like, this gala thing happening.
Yeah. But nevertheless,
still, it's a fair point.
If you are from a different country in a movie, and you are among other people from your country, speak your own language. If someone else comes in speaking a different language, there should be confusion. Also, if you speak English, you should have an accent. Okay? It's lazy for a movie to skip over that. Anyways, okay. The movie gets slightly boring in the middle. Slightly boring. When it's just, they're on the helicarrier, and everyone's just talking for 20 minutes, and there's nothing real interesting to break it up.
Yeah.
Granted, there are a couple moments where, like, the Loki and Black Widow, that's like, cool, that's an entertaining scene. But I started to, like, nod off a little bit. So it got slightly boring. Not incredibly boring, just like the Incredible Hulk, but slightly boring. Loki's plan, to quote Iron Man, not a good plan. Okay? I didn't like that Loki's plan was to try and break up the Avengers and get the Avengers to fight each other. Okay? That never works. You should know that never works, okay? If you want to get rid of them, just kill them.
It's easier to kill them if they're not united to fight against you.
Fair enough.
And it would have been super easy to kill them if Hulk had killed them all.
Yeah, okay.
I think that was his plan.
Fair point.
His plan was destroy the helicarrier, set loose the Hulk. Those who aren't killed by the Hulk will be killed by the falling helicarrier. I think that was his plan.
Okay. Then I'll concede that point. Loki's plan was sort of smart.
It was okay if a few things didn't go wrong.
The Avengers, I didn't like that they didn't tell Nick Fury where they were going. Because if they did, Nick Fury would have radioed some sort of person in New York saying, evac everyone within a 20-mile radius of Stark Tower.
But they don't trust Fury. That's the whole point.
Didn't they... Okay.
I get it. Yes.
They should have told someone, or should have, can Tony get a hold of Pepper? She's in New York.
No, she was in the plane.
They should have gotten a hold of someone to evac people before they got there.
Yes, they should have contacted some sort of authority. But they don't trust Fury, so that's why it wasn't him.
We don't get an explanation as to how Thor and Bruce Banner find New York.
That's
or
true.
know that they're supposed to be there.
That's true. That I will not argue.
We have no idea where Banner fell.
Yeah.
Okay? We have no idea where.
Yeah.
And presumably he's in the middle of nowhere. So how does he know to get back to New York in time on a motorcycle? I highly doubt that. Thor as well. It's a little bit more believable because he can move pretty fast with his flying stuff, but
still,
he shouldn't know where everyone was headed.
Fair point.
I do not like Bruce's explanation of how he controls his anger, that he's always angry. That legit makes zero sense. That was a point that I was going to write
down. I forgot to write it down.
Like, how do I... Okay, this might sound a little disgusting, but how do I control, like, peeing? It's not by, I'm always peeing. Like, it makes no sense.
That was a weird analogy.
But it works. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Fair enough.
Right?
Yes, I didn't like the
Can you think of a better?
Either.
Can you think of a better analogy?
A better analogy?
Yes.
So
you can't. That was a great analogy.
I don't.
Okay. I'm getting riled up. I do not like the nuke plot line. Where they send a nuke towards a city because they don't think the Avengers can stop the aliens. Because I'm like, you still haven't tried everything. Contact the U.S. government. Get the entire U.S. Army up in New York and shoot some aliens.
It would take a while to get all of the U.S. Army up in New York, and they want to destroy the Army before the Army spreads. I think that's the point.
Yeah, but it's a dumb decision to sacrifice all those lives to stop some aliens.
It is a dumb decision, but people make stupid decisions when they're scared. And Earth has never seen aliens before, and if suddenly
so your first reaction is to nuke one major city?
Remember, this is America! We're Canadian, by the way.
I don't not like the nuke plot. And then my other problem was, like, there should have been a way faster military response from the U.S., to be perfectly honest with you. They're too slow, and no one decides to actually contact them. Like, Iron Man has a connection with the U.S. Army. Rhodey. It wouldn't take much. One phone call. I know Rhodey's probably too expensive to have this movie based on all the other things that are happening, but come on.
I mean, they wouldn't even need to show him. Just say that I'm going to make a call, and then the army shows up or something, you know?
Because right now it's legit 5 people fighting an entire army.
Yeah.
Like, anyways.
Basically, you don't like the climax of this movie very much.
The fighting itself is really, really fun and entertaining. Everything surrounding it is stupid and dumb.
See, and you don't necessarily notice all those things when you watch it the first time, and then you're like, wait a minute, this actually doesn't make all that much sense.
Yeah. Okay. Done with that.
Okay, that was entertaining. What was the point? What was the point? So I wrote down, it's sort of a faith in humanity kind of thing, and I'm going to pull out a quote from Lord of the Rings. There is some good in this world, and it's worth fighting for. And
Mr. Frodo.
And I think that that's something that the Avengers have to discover, even about themselves, is that despite all of our collective mistakes and individual mistakes, there is good in each of us.
Yeah.
And it's amplified when we're together, and the world is worth saving, and so let's go kick some alien butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a fair point?
That is 100% a fair point. What was the point? What was my point?
What was your point?
My point that I got out of this was, will you continue supporting freedom when your freedom is challenged? I feel that it's especially applicable to today's world, where our free speech and other facets of our freedom is being taken away from us. Mm-hmm. And not many people are doing anything about it.
Yeah.
So this movie goes to show that if your freedom's being challenged, I'm not inciting violence. Don't be like Captain America and start punching things.
People.
Okay?
But stand up for what you believe in.
Exactly. Especially when other people are challenging things that you believe to be true and right.
That is excellent.
Thank you.
Go be Avengers!
I really poured everything into this.
I noticed. That got deep.
Okay.
That got deep.
To wrap everything up, this is a long review.
It's a fun review.
What's your rating?
8.
8 as well. 10? This is an 8.
Cool.
So,
okay.
Stay tuned for, in a couple of videos, we are going to rank every single Phase 1 movie. We're going to have different lists, and then we're going to compare them, see how similar or different they are, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion around that.
Looking forward to that.
Should be fun.
I think for the most part we'll be fairly similar, but it'll be really interesting to see which one pulls ahead for us.
Yes, because I think we might have different number ones, but
probably.
We'll see.
Probably. So, question of the day. If the Avengers was a group of 7 instead of 6, and you were that 7th member, what's something unique that you would bring to the team? Please let us know in the comments. I am very intrigued.
Invisibility.
Ooh. Oh, that's cool.
What would you bring?
I don't know. Like, fire powers is cool. Or
I'm a Mario.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. There's a lot of powers. Mind control, actually, because then I could just take Hawkeye right back.
Yeah. Yeah, and stop the whole thing. Be like, Loki, you're done. Sit down.
Yeah. I mean, that would make the movie a lot shorter, but there you go. Okay.
So, thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this video. If you haven't done any of those things, go ahead and do them.
Now is your time.
You have an opportunity.
Free speech.
Yay. Okay, we'll see you guys in our next video.
Bye.
Don't you say it left. Come on!